All right, we're going to go ahead and get going to make the most of everyone's time and make sure we have an opportunity to hear from everybody. So welcome everybody, and thanks so much for being here tonight. I know that this has been a challenging situation for many neighbors who were impacted by the surge of visitorship that we experienced in the wake of tremendous media coverage of this new preserve. I want to acknowledge, that we could spend the next 3 hours here talking about what went wrong and why, and that would ultimately not change anything either for neighbors or for visitors. And so I really want to focus tonight on solutions, and I want to emphasize that this is not one and done. First of all, this will not be the last meeting that we have about this. We can have check-ins, whether that's at a coastal map, whether that is through these informal meetings that we are going to be having with stakeholders, including representatives from the HOA. I do not expect that we are going to do one thing and that is going to solve this problem forever into the future. So we are absolutely going to have to continue this conversation. We are going to need to have an iterative process, right? Where we try one solution, we learn from it, and then we get better as we go over time. So I want you to know that we are absolutely committed to the long haul on this project. And even though this is not a county project, I am absolutely committed to facilitating these meetings, participating in these meetings, and ensuring that all of the many agencies who are involved, and let me see if I can get them all. Let's see. So we have Wildlands, we have the Coastal Commission, we have the Coastal Conservancy, we have regional parks, public infrastructure. We have, who am I missing here? Well, we also have sort of sheriff and CHP in terms of enforcement pieces. We have been working closely with Sonoma County Fire District on emergency, vehicle access issues. And who am I missing from the bureaucratic soup? I have an open space district. Missy's sitting right there. I'm sitting right there in front of me. You're like, that's okay. Okay, good. And no offense taken. Yes, low profile. So I want you to know that we are all, in the HOA itself. So we are all committed to working together towards solutions. We've got we're going to try to keep the presentations as concise as we can tonight so that we do have an opportunity for feedback and for questions from the community. So that is actually all I am going to say, aside from I want to acknowledge one really critical party who does not have a speaking role tonight, but is here in case anyone needs it. And that is, we've got Cindy from Sonoma County Fire District, and we also have Steve Hertzberg from Sonoma County Fire District. And Cindy has been absolutely critical in developing a letter that was sent and is available for the Coastal Commission to impress upon the Coastal Commission the fact that this is an emergency situation, that we cannot have vehicles parked on both sides of these roads and two-way traffic. It does present an issue for emergency vehicle access. One other thing that I would like to share that I don't think I shared at the last meeting is that I have had personal conversations with our local coastal commissioner, Ariel Kelly, and she actually spoke directly to Cape Huckleberry. And we have sort of gotten an unofficial blessing that this is the kind of thing that would be eligible for an urgency permit. And she actually drove out personally to see for herself on a busy weekend what this looked like. We've been in very close communication and coordination. I do not expect the parking to fully solve this problem, the red striping. And so I want you to know that is a short-term solution that we are working on. We will also be discussing longer-term solutions throughout the presentations tonight. And so with that, I believe I am kicking it over to, am I going to Wildlands first? Are you guys on? Okay, great. All right, you want to come on up and get into the presentation? I think Shay is going to handle the slide deck.
All right, so my name is Luke Farmer. I serve as Regional Director for the Wildlands Conservancy Sonoma Coast Preserve. I know there's a lot of people who want to speak tonight, so I'm going to be very brief. Our role in this process has always been, we want to protect this landscape and open it up to the public daily free of charge. We absolutely recognize, everyone knows, we had media attention, the visitation spike, and we take that concern really seriously for the neighbors. We have, as Lynda mentioned, a working group that has been established since long before we opened to the public. I'm really confident that we can find really proactive solutions. I do also want to mention just that the property is bound by a conservation easement and a recreation covenant from the county, as well as a coastal development permit from the State Coastal Commission. So any actions we take moving forward are going to need to be data-driven and in alignment with those documents. We've been collecting data on visitation for the last several months before we opened, or before we went to 7 days a week visitation. That data is going to be really helpful in informing the working group in finding a solution that ensures that that addresses the needs of public safety and emergency access while also ensuring the general public's right to the coast. And so I really want to thank the working group, the HOA, the county, everyone involved, and our team as well. We've dealt with this extraordinary circumstance, I think, really flexibly and collaboratively, and I'm excited about what we can come up with. So with that, I'm just going to hand it over to Ryan Berger, our Sonoma Coast Preserve manager, to talk a little more about the process we went through and some of the trends we've been seeing. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Lynda, thank you for hosting this and making it possible. Thanks for everybody showing up. We've definitely heard your concerns. We're listening to those. Before I dive into the data, I did just want to kind of revisit some of the proactive approaches that the Wildlands Conservancy has done leading up to this. So we were the entity that spearheaded the working group that brought the multi-agencies together because we wanted the right people at the table in case these issues did come up, so that it wasn't retroactive into it, that we had already established who was the right people and we could work collaboratively together to find those solutions. One of those important members are the HOA board members. And so by having those engagement early on, they had input into the process. And part of that input led us to a phased approach. And so, right, for a while, we just had scheduled guided events onto the property. Then in mid-July, we opened up 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Then in mid-November, we opened up 7 days a week as per our coastal development permit and the requirements through the Coastal Commission. And so we were really trying to transition into this process and make it as smooth as possible through that process. Despite kind of accomplishing a pretty big thing for us, we were also intentional in not drawing media. We did not have a grand opening and try to get the media to come and to advertise this because we didn't want it to blow up to what it has today. So that was very intentional as well. And that we've shown up to every one of the meetings. We're not shying away from this. We're at the table. We are coming together as a collaborative mindset, looking for solutions, and we will continue to do that. So I just wanted to start with kind of our proactive approach and trying to transition into this process. Che, go ahead and next slide. We'll get into the visitation data now, just to highlight some of that. So we launched the data or the trail traffic counter in September, but we were open in July. We just didn't have it launched then, but similar trends before that. What you'll see is, ups and downs, but below 200 people visiting all the way through January 9th, suppose. And again, those are weekends, right? Where you see the big spikes, those are likely weekends because that's when most people are coming to visit. And then as a direct result of unsolicited, San Francisco Chronicle reached out. We did not ask them for the article. They were going to write it anyways. They reached out to our partners. So they launched that and then it got picked up by a bunch of other media. What we saw was an immediate spike, right? So on Sunday, January 11th, we had 400 visitors, where before that we were at 200. Then we had of all that great weather, a holiday weekend, really good surf, and we saw almost 1,200 visitors on the Sunday of MLK Junior Weekend. It was intense and it was stressful, but we did manage it. We stepped up by having more staff on site, trying to help with the parking, ensuring public or human health and safety is our #1 priority through that. What we've seen since then, you can go to the next slide now, is a steady decline. So it does show, ups and downs again with the weekends, but each subsequent weekend, we're starting to see those numbers come back down. We've got to play this out, right? We don't know what the future holds. There will be another spike. There's going to be great weather. We know this is going to happen. That's why we have the working group in place so that we can get ahead of it. And we can start talking about short-term, middle-term, and long-term solutions. Next slide. This is kind of messy all over the place. We just wanted to throw data, weather data into it as well. So you'll see max temperatures. We really didn't see a correlation to like if it was warm or cold. It was more the rainfall, right? Which we expected. So the blue is the rainfall. You see whenever it spikes up, visitation is down, no doubt. But we did have this period where we had that big spike and then up till recently where we didn't have a lot of rainfall and naturally those numbers are starting to decline, back to what more normal would be like. Next slide. And then this is just supported on our online engagement, right? So this is the data through Google searches. It shows who's searching Estero Americano Coast Preserve. and then who's actually clicking and opening up the website. It just follows similar patterns as to what we saw with our visitation data. Again, a direct result from the media attention that we received. That's the last slide. I just, a couple other points before I end, is just to reiterate, Lynda, we're talking about an iterative process, right? Our primary focus is to make sure that the community's safe, that the visitors are safe, and that emergency vehicles can get through. And we don't want it to be at the expense of general public access. That is something that's going to remain as we work through this process. We're asking for a bit of patience, right? Because we had 6 months of data where it was within what we were expecting, and then we're seeing the trend come back down. So the working group will be the platform that takes all of the concerns, the information that we're receiving. We'll meet together. We're going to continue to host those and facilitate those, and we'll work towards those long-term solutions. But we're not the only decision makers, right? We are bound by those other, the recreational covenant, the conservation easement, the coastal development permit, and we need to meet with our partners and figure out what is the appropriate solution as we move forward. But we are excited about this. We think that we can find a balance between the two of having public access here and then meeting the needs of the community as well. I'll stand there, and I don't know if we're taking questions or not this time.
So, yeah. Is that, do you have some more slides?
No, that's.
Just one quick question for you.
Okay, great. We are not, we're gonna take questions at the end.
Very
And
quick,
so,
I just, it's a very short question. Have you done an abnormal situation analysis or worst case analysis in looking at your case?
We have not yet, no, but I think that is a great point that we can put in as we bring the data and the information. into the
For
work.
example, you know.
yeah, and I'm sorry, but I really want to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity to speak, sir, after everyone presents. We're gonna have a time for question and answer, and so I just want to make sure and the reason that I'm cutting off is I want to try to get through all the presentations and then make it fair and open it up to everyone, so thanks. Thank you very much for that presentation. I am now going to hand it over to Steven and hi, where did you go?
I'm right here.
Oh, there we go, awesome, hiding in the back, and I think we got Rob out of the back cave as well, right? So do you want to come up too, or are you just providing moral support there? Rob is all things roads. We have been through many storms together and he makes the magic happen. All right.
Thank you, Lynda. Nice to meet you all. Thanks. I was the one who brought in the presentation poster board up here. I encourage you guys all to have a look at that before you leave. SPY's role in this is we heard that there was a problem with fire and safety access vehicles coming in. We've expedited a resolution that's going to go to the Board of Supervisors. It's on the agenda for March 10th. It's assumed it's going to be adopted. Once that's adopted, the red lines shown on that graphic will become no parking. We've chosen to do the no parking on the side that has the houses so that it's better sight distance, and it actually is the better option of the two sides because the other side with the lack of driveways has more space for parallel parking. We're also helping out by doing the emergency coastal commission application. And that's it. And that's all I have. Rob, do you have anything else to contribute?
No.
It's really short and sweet here. We're just trying to help you guys as quickly as possible. I'll be here after the meeting if anybody wants to talk further. It was nice meeting the few of you that came up earlier when I was standing here next to the tripod. And I'm here for you guys. Thank you.
And so I'm guessing that everyone is familiar with this issue by now, but just quick sort of point of clarity. So for the no parking zones, first it has to go to the Board of Supervisors. That will happen in early March. This is lightning speed for county government. And so I'm really, really grateful to public infrastructure for actually expediting this. And then I will also be very grateful when public infrastructure very quickly and promptly puts up those signs as soon as they are allowed to. But before they are allowed to, we have to go to the Coastal Commission for an urgency permit. That urgency permit will last until, hopefully, we move forward with a formal coastal development permit, which will be required for the long-term installation. But thanks to the participation of Sonoma County Fire District, we do believe that we have adequate justification to classify for an urgency permit, which supposedly can be turned around in as quickly as 24 hours from the Coastal Commission, which is really lightning speed for government. And so The other good thing about moving forward with this as an urgency means that if this doesn't work and we need to actually extend that or contract that or change it, we have an opportunity to do that through the CDP. So I want you all to know, again, this is going to be an iterative process. If this doesn't get the job done, this is our best guess in conversations with the HOA of what we think will work. If it doesn't work, we will come back at it and we will have a revised version that can go to the Coastal Commission. Now, a presentation that I am absolutely thrilled to introduce. I want to give huge credit to the Bodega Harbour HOA, who has actually stepped up, listened to everyone's feedback, and in the interest of advocating for their membership, but also coming up with practical solutions, is going to introduce a set of potential long-term parking solutions that we at the county are committed to looking at and to working with these groups, working with the Wildlands Conservancy and seeing what we can do to actually implement these as a long-term solution. And I actually learned, sort of a historical point. And again, would be nice if we could, sort of learn our lessons the first time. But as I understand it, Pinnacle Gulch actually had a very similar situation and originally did not have a parking lot, experienced a surge in visitorship, and voila, now there is a parking lot. And so hopefully that will also be a long-term solution on this particular issue here. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Tracy to give a presentation from the HOA. After that, we will take questions and comments. And I will ask people, I know it's sort of a little bit awkward, but it's also very efficient. If we just kind of line up over here and then everyone can have, we'll try to give 2 minutes depending on, how many people want to speak at the podium. And then we'll all write down their questions and answer the questions at the end to be as efficient and to hear from as many voices as we can. So Tracy, and Beth, are you going to come too? All right, okay.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm probably gonna talk a little bit longer because it's a presentation here that we're pretty happy with. And I want to first thank Supervisor Hopkins. Into the mic. Okay, you got it. How's that? So first, thanking them for this opportunity. And I am Tracy Emerald. I serve as the president of the Bodega Harbour Homeowners Association. And I wanted to let you know that I'm here to represent our 725 homeowners in our community and neighbors who love this coast, who want to see this succeed and be sustainable for generations. So that's our takeaway on that. Tonight, I'm here to do 3 things. The very first is to share what we've learned about the stakeholders, and this presentation is going to be integral to that. And I do want to let you know there is a handout there with a QR code. You can bring it up on your phone. You can go home and look at this. It's available to you to go through this, and we're not going to go through every slide, but we're going to talk about it as a concept. So I'm here to share what we've heard. Second, I'm going to explain why we are saying that a collaborative step has to be the next process. It has to be part of what we have to do and reinforce the association's commitment to working constructively together with all these partners that they've identified. And I will say, I would want to thank every one of them that are here and the others who haven't been, but it's been a really educational process for me, and people have stepped up and been here. And I just want to reassure you that the communications have been really worthwhile for us moving forward. And then third is to ask the county to formally evaluate all reasonable long-term parking solutions together with us as partners. And that's our ask. That's why we're here. So we've summarized everybody's position in this website that's called a Community and Alignment website. And I have to give credit to Jeff Burke, who's sitting right there, who is the homeowner who took the time to look at and help us present to you what everyone's vantage points are, because we all felt we needed to take the time to understand where it was and find the intersections where we can work together. And he's done a phenomenal job. I just can't tell you how talented this gentleman is, and it's been such a blessing for us. So I want to make sure that I recognize him, and it outlines all of our thinking in a lot of detail. So again, we're not going to cover every last part of it today, but I want to give you kind of an overview of where we stand and what our position is. We did meet with the county. We met with the Wildlands. We have shared it with all the stakeholders. Everyone has seen that before this meeting, so they knew exactly what we'd be saying, full transparency. And so here's what we've heard. Over the past couple months, we've met with the county, we've met with the Wildlands, we've attended coastal MAC meetings, we've spoken with emergency services, we've followed the media coverage like you all seen a lot of that, met with the neighbors one-on-one, and as most of you know, we had a town hall meeting that we had well over 100 homeowners attend. So we've gotten literally hundreds voices to take in and include in our thought process. So where we've landed is that we've got the wildlands and the conservation partners who want to keep the preserve open and manage it for the long term. We have our community that wants a safe, unobstructed emergency access and solution that honors public access without filling the residential streets with cars. We have the county government that needs something enforceable and durable, not a fix that simply moves the problem elsewhere. We've got the public safety partners that need guaranteed emergency access, including unblocked 20-foot widths on Osprey and surrounding roads. Visitors who want a legitimate and logical place to park and a welcoming experience when they get here. And when you look at it all collectively, the common thread is pretty clear that we need designated parking at or near the preserve that routes visitors intentionally instead of into residential areas. So that was our takeaway with that. And why this matters is right now the visitors come from the Bay Area. There's no designated place to park. It's not clear. They spill into the streets, and I know you've all seen it. I know that's why you're here. And so it's important that we recognize that. So the public investment created this coastline, and we opened it, and we want to find that we can succeed with that. But access only works when it's managed, and so that is our position. But this is not about opposing access. It's about making access work. And that is our stance as a board. That's where we're committed to working. So our ask, we're not asking for a final answer tonight. We know that's not going to happen. We're asking for the county to formally evaluate the preserve site parking solutions. And in a minute, you're going to see that we've come up with 7 on this possible solutions. And again, these are just conceptual. So look at them with the eye towards this as a conversation starter. There are places, 3 of them are road driven and 3 of them are hiking. And there's also a shuttle conversation going on. So we're trying to look at the broadest possible universe and find out where we can collectively work. And some of these might be short-term solutions. We all know we need short-term solutions. And maybe there's an intermediate solution and then long-term solutions. So that's been our focus, and I invite you to go look at this because you're going to see very clear, thoughtful conversation starters. They are not been topographically reviewed. Nobody's saying this road is going to go exactly right there. It's just a point of conversation for us to start. So on behalf of the BHHA, I'm committing that we will participate actively in a multi-agency work group. We'll support a collaborative, data-driven solution and evaluations, and we will provide local knowledge and perspective, and we'll continue to be transparent in our communication with the homeowners and let you all know what we're working on. So I guess the final thought for me is that we believe that communication works best with neighbors, government, conservation partners, emergency vehicle services, and the public with respect and shared commitment to the long term. That's what we are proposing, and we're ready to help build the solution, not just describe the problem. So I think that's all I was going to say, unless you want me to.
Do you want to highlight where to find this information online?
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, the piece of paper in the back has the QR code and the website. There you go. Thank you. That's what it looks like. You can either use the QR code, and I did have a little piece of paper with the larger, but we'd be happy to. Jatane can send it to you if you don't have it. It is available. As you can see, if you keep going, there's actually a lot more to it than this. And it is a very well thought out and very clear explanation of the board of directors stance and what we're willing to do. And we've been working very hard, as is all these partners. I'm going to assure you that I can tell you, nobody's taking this lightly. We're all trying to work together on this, and we're asking you as a community to let us continue to work on this together. So I will let the questions, I would point out the fact sheet, though you might want to mention that there is one that questions that we already kind of asked and answered at our town hall, but
And I also wanted to share that we have had members of the community step up and actually count cars. And so there are also many copies of that spreadsheet that are available to you if you're curious. that in addition to the data from the Conservancy, with the peak, I believe at 1,177 individuals on one day, which is staggering, that we also have now a data set brought forward by the community in terms of cars. I'm going to ask for only one thing before I hand it over to you all to ask questions and make comments. First of all, can everyone just raise their hand if they plan to make a comment or ask a question? Okay, all right, so we could probably do, I'm thinking we could actually do 3 minutes. And then if more people kind of jump on board and want to, we might sort of limit the time a little bit further.
How
So,
many are online?
oh, that's a good question. All right, how many online are hands raised? That may
Have one hand raised online.
one hand raised online? Yeah, just one moment. How many on Zoom would like to ask a question? 2. Okay. All right, more populating. So maybe we'll start with 2 minutes. If you go over a little bit, I won't harshly cut you off. And then I had introduced Steve Hertzberg and Cindy Foreman. I also neglected to, you all know him, he needs no introduction, but your awesome resident coastal deputy, Jeremy, in the back. Could we get a hand for our awesome public safety officials that along with the They are what keep the community safe, and really, really grateful for their participation in this meeting tonight. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you. If everyone wants to kind of line up, we will have a little clock and we will let you know when your time is up. And we'll be taking notes on questions and then making sure that the appropriate party is able to answer those questions afterwards.
Oh, I can.
Okay.
Okay, this will be really fast. After the
Yeah. Okay.
I'm Catherine Dixon. I'm a homeowner. I live on Pelican Loop. It's exactly 1 mile to the trailhead. I know that. A couple of volunteers and I have put together a spreadsheet. We try to go every day. We can't always go, but we go 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 4 o'clock, as close as we can. We start counting from the time you turn left onto Osprey from Mockingbird. And we count all the way down as far as the cars are going. So far, they haven't gone beyond oyster catcher. So we started after the big hullabaloo in January, so we don't have that data. The way this works is we have the days of the week, we have the holidays and weekends highlighted in yellow. We have the date, we have the weather, and there's a legend at the bottom. So we tell you if it's rainy, cloudy, foggy, whatever. Then we have the number of cars each time. So you're not adding these up. These are the cars that are on the street at that time. Then we have the average for the cars for that day. And then we have the peak, which is what people are going to be really interested in. What was the most number of cars that day? The comment section, if it's blank, it means the cars were parked on the preserve side of Osprey. When you see something in the comments column, if it says OC, that's Owl Court.
Thank you,
There.
Kathy.
Okay. If anybody has any questions about how to read this, we intend to continue doing it through the summer. I'm happy to answer your questions about it. And next time I'll try to have some graphs that go along with it. It matches pretty much what the visitor stuff shows.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You can come on up. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Miriam Green. I live on Heron as you are going up the hill toward the Estero. And everybody seems to be focusing on parking, and I realize that's a huge issue, but nobody has seemed to have mentioned speeding, the number of cars both ways. So in the morning, you've got, especially weekends, you've got car after car after car, and then around 3 o'clock to 5 or 5:30, and it'll change with daylight saving time, there'll be more coming down. So you've got people coming over the hill toward the exit. You can't see who's crossing. And I cross the road several times a day. I've got an elderly dog. I have to pick her up, and sometimes I have to wait there for like 8 cars to pass, like both directions. I've had one time where somebody stopped to let me cross the road. And then in terms of speeding, it's not just the people that are coming to the Estero. The workers come in the morning at 6:30 to 7, they're shooting up the hill, residents speed too. So it might be something you want to consider in terms of more speed signs or possibly even speed bumps in that part of Heron, because it's like a highway sometime. And the other problem with traffic early in the morning, when people are coming to the harbor, they're coming off the highway, they're going up that hill, they don't know that they don't need to stop. And so you've got people at the stop sign, especially the people that are gonna turn left, that are waiting, people that are coming up the hill are waiting, and then there's 6 cars behind them, somebody's honking, and, there's gonna be an accident at some point. So I don't know if we need a crosswalk there, and then if you're walking, then, you've got to kind of look both ways, figure out when you can cross, and it's kind of like dodge the bullet. So that's something you might want to put a crosswalk there. I'm not saying you need a stop sign, but somehow you need to have maybe a sign like keep going. I don't know, you've got the right of way.
Thank
So that's an issue.
And that is your 2 minutes. Sorry. I don't
Oh,
know if
sorry.
that's-
Okay.
You guys are talking. Thanks.
I can just be loud next.
Yeah, we're just, sorry. Technical difficulties.
Hi, I'm John Laughlin. I'm a homeowner in Bodega Harbour. And first, I'd like to thank Supervisor Hopkins. She responded with real alacrity in pulling this conversation together and listening to the concerns that the community brought forward back in mid-January. I hope this is not the only sentiment that is met with unanimous agreement, but Supervisor Hopkins, I hope I speak for everybody in saying thank you for doing this. This is really important. 3 short comments. I had the privilege of looking at this a little before the meeting. And I want to applaud the Homeowners Association's board for their compelling, concise, and constructive articulation of the issues, and especially for their very specific suggestions as to how vehicle traffic and parking challenges can be addressed. It is a tangible, actionable, and clear roadmap towards a genuine set of solutions from this homeowner's perspective. Second point, in concert with the solution for addressing the vehicle and parking issues, I believe it would advance a planning framework for there to be a rigorous, independent visitor capacity assessment of the Estero Ranch to assist in ensuring the long-term environmental health and preservation of this remarkable piece of land. And I know there has been a fair amount of discussion about this topic, but I think it becomes even more compelling when you consider the potential for additional parking. How will you determine the number of parking spots that you want or need if you don't know what the carrying capacity, the visitor capacity is for the preserve itself? I think this is essential. It's essential for the planning and for the environment. And then finally, I'd strongly suggest the current working group, I want to thank them, but I think they should be enlarged modestly to include several members of the community who are free agents, or said another way, not representing specific constituencies other than just being a resident and interested member of the community.
And if you could wrap it up.
I will,
so we can
I
get
will
the person.
indeed.
Great.
I would
You're
respectfully
right.
ask that this working group follow good government practices relative to public transparency in meetings and reporting to assist the public in understanding the issues, options, and the recommendations that they've made.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
My name's Ed Witz, and I'm a full-time resident at Bodega Harbour. And when you're talking about a residential area, ours is a little more unique, I think. In that, a lot of the homes are second homes, and a lot of them are rental properties. And these rental properties all have permits already, and they're required to have parking spaces. When you put a red curb in front of the house, they no longer have it. So it's permitted already and you're taking it away. It's I'm not sure how far they're supposed to walk with all their luggage, but I think it needs to be a concern.
Thank you for that. Looks like we have one more in person, then we'll go to online. Are you, yeah?
Good evening. My name is Richard Behrens. I live on Oyster Catcher Loop. I'm just here for a couple moments. My background, I'm a scientist. I worked at the Department of Energy Laboratories for a number of years. I worked at Sandia for 33 years and looked at responsive systems in abnormal and unusual environments. And it was with that perspective that I decided to try to look at what's going on with the roads. So what I did is I went out and I measured the roads in our area, Mockingbird and others, and have basically they're 28 feet wide. Heron, on the other hand, is 39 feet wide. If you take into account that the parking takes 8 feet or so, that leaves about 20 feet of clearance on the 28-foot roads, which is what the minimum requirement is for an emergency vehicle to move through that area. So that, if I'm an engineer, one doesn't basically design to the boundary of the limit, you know, so that's basically it's saying that those roads are not wide enough for any parking. The other thing that comes up is we are actually a single access area. There's only one road, and I'm sure many of you already know that, okay? So basically, we are a dead-end road. And as far as I can tell, with parcels the sizes of ours, basically a dead-end road can only be 800 feet long. And currently, I'm about 2 miles from the Highway 1 road, so there's some significant issues there with what the length of the road is for safety issues, okay? So what my proposal is, okay, and I think what the community has been doing to find permanent parking is excellent. I think that is truly the answer to what we want to try to do to get a good parking facility, preferably off of Highway 1 to come into the Wildlands area. In the interim, if you look at the measurements of the road that could bear parking on it while the emergency vehicles go through is Heron Road because it is 39 feet wide. So one can park on Heron Road and still have emergency access. So what I would suggest we might consider is as an interim solution to this before we come up with permanent parking is to consider whether we could have designated parking somewhere on Heron Road.
Okay.
Okay. great,
Thank you
thanks.
very much for that suggestion, and that is your time. We're now going to go to online. I think you guys got up after I said we shift to online. Is that okay? And then I'll come back to you. Is that all right? Okay. Then we have Ralph up first. Ralph, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Ralph, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello?
Do we have, it looks like, let's see, do we have
Hello?
volume up on our end? Because it looks as though Ralph is speaking.
Volume is up. Should be.
Can you hear me?
Okay. So we're not hearing you. Why don't we try going to Tanya?
Can you hear me now?
You can hear us now?
Can you hear me? It's Tanya.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think the people online can hear each other. Ralph, I can hear you, but they don't hear us in the room.
Let me jump on the owl.
Let
Hold
me,
on 1 second. It seems like we're not
Yeah.
able to hear you. So while we try to work out the technical difficulties, why don't we go back to our in-person commenters?
Okay.
And we'll see what we can do. Our apologies.
I'm Bill Vasey. I want to thank the working group and the board for coming together with some alternatives that I think actually work. It's going to take some money and some effort. For me, the most important thing that we have a parking lot off Osprey is a back road with a wide enough trail so an emergency that people who live in far South Harbor can actually leave. That's more important than the entire Estero conversation at all. Right now, there's no way out. If Mockingbird goes down, you can't get out. And that's, I mean, for those of us who are over 30, that's a real issue. I'm one of the people who's been counting cars. And what's important to me is it doesn't matter what reason the car is there. The blockage on the street is the same. But my personal, my vacation rental, a gardener, construction trucks, they're even bigger and wider. Probably we should have parking on one side of the street, whether or not there's an Estero. If you need 20 feet, you shouldn't be able to park on both sides of the street anywhere. Maybe Heron, but nowhere else. Anyway, I would just want to thank everybody, and this is a place where I think we're really in good constructive dialogue. Do I have personal preferences of all the, oh, sure I do, but that's not important. What's important is we're talking about solutions rather than, gosh, poor me, I need to protect me. We're doing something that works for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And why don't we go ahead and take our last in-person public commenter, and then I think that we have the audio sorted on Zoom. If the audio for some reason flakes out again on Zoom, what we can do is people can put their comments into the chat and we can read them out loud.
I'm gonna mostly read for the sake of time. My name is Heather, and my family lives part-time on Osprey Drive, what's being called the non-residential side.
Can't hear you very well.
Oh, my name is Heather. My family lives part-time on Osprey Drive, what's currently being called the non-residential side, and where parking is being encouraged and appears to continue to be encouraged. We were not necessarily opposed to this trail and access, but also never imagined things would be as they are. We opened to the Estero Preserve directly on two sides, and the last month has been very distressing. We have many concerns. The most relevant tonight is the sheer number of people who are now coming into the neighborhood and parking on the street, specifically as it relates to egress and access for EMS and fire. I'm not an engineer or planner. I'm a nurse with 3 young kids and elderly parents. But my research, observations, and common sense tell me that any street parking, even if one side is not safe, may not meet standard requirements and shouldn't be allowed. If we do the math, I was unaware that Heron was as wide as it is. But take Osprey, 28 feet. I understand the roads are 21 to 28 feet wide. Guidelines allot 8 feet for a parked car, 10 feet for a driving car. That leaves 3 to 10 feet of road for a 10-foot wide fire truck. The math doesn't work. And that doesn't account for the two-way pedestrian traffic that's being spilled out onto the street because there's nowhere for people to go. I imagine this is why California Vehicle Code, California Fire Code all require a minimum of 28 to 35 feet of road width for parking on one side. Parking should be limited to the existing lots or perhaps considered on Heron. If a delay in care or service happens even one time, that's one time too many. This is an unnecessary risk.
Thank you for your comments. And we're going to go to online.
Ralph
Actually,
Schoolcraft?
it looks like Tanya is unmuted right now. Tanya, can you speak?
Okay, can you hear me?
I got Ralph.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Ralph Schoolcraft. I live on Osprey and have served on our homeowners board from 2014 until 2020, during which time the trust purchased the Estero Americano and envisioned at that time visits by small groups led by docents. Before I go on, let me thank Ms. Superintendent Hopkins for hosting this meeting. I've lived in Bodega Bay for 25 years, and thank you for your service to Western Sonoma through many challenging years. With that said, all of the suggestions I have heard of signs, painted curbs, etc., sound like the kids' riddle from decades ago of how do you get 6 elephants into a VW Beetle? The answer is obviously you put 2 in the front seat and 4 in the back. But that seems to be what we're trying to do here. I have not heard a workable solution that can turn our residential streets into a county parking lot for 100 to 200 cars that show up every nice weekend day. And I think the only solution to the parking problem that I think is realistic and fair is a parking lot on the Estero Americano itself. After owning the land for 11 years, the Conservancy clearly is still not ready to open this fabulous Estero Americano to an enthusiastic public. In my opinion, they need to reclose it for a while longer, adding on to the 11 years, until the Conservancy and the county can arrange road access to the park with a large on-site parking area equipped with restrooms and trash containers. The Conservancy and the county need to bring access and facilities up to the standard of the other coastal parks to make it a deservedly great gem in the string of public parks between here and Jenna.
Thank you, Ralph. That does conclude your time. Appreciate the comments. Next up, we have Tanya. Tanya, you should be able to unmute. There we go.
Is that okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you again for allowing us to discuss this important matter with the partners here and the BHA, the nice presentation they've been trying to pull together. My initial comments may seem a little tangential to the immediate focus on traffic solutions to making access work, as has been stated. But really, to make it work for the environment is the bigger thing here for me. And I have a strong history in environmental and ecosystem health. And I really would like to strongly look for a carrying capacity, independent evaluation, so that we can preserve the maximum number of people that should be handled without long-term damage. I mean, this is also for the not only public safety, but also for the quality of hiking the area. And these are known sustainable principles. And I don't understand that the parking capacity, the parking lot you want to build has to be driven by the capacity that the land can handle. And I don't think the unlimited access is a sustainable plan. And I have asked this in emails. There is nowhere in the covenant that states that unlimited public access is without exception to uphold conservation and public safety. And so your trans traffic study showed that we can't handle these numbers. But even if you make an independent parking solution, you have to see what is sustainable for the land. And I'm very concerned about that we focus on community safety, we focus on people, but we also need to focus on what is okay for a fragile, naive watershed environment with threatened and endangered species. And that is not rising to the surface. I do not see that from the California Coastal Commission. I don't see it from the Wildlands Conservancy. I don't see that as rising to the top. And I'm very, very concerned about that. And I agree with Ralph that there needs to be an immediate reduction in numbers to manage, to allow the wildlife and the lands to be okay.
Thank you, Tanya. That does conclude your time.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Lisa, followed by Patricia.
Hi there, this is Lisa Beatty. Can you hear me okay?
You can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak and thanks for putting together another town hall meeting. First of all, I appreciate the short-term solutions and the lightning speed at which you're trying to address the parking issues. I do want to point out, I realize that the agenda tonight only addresses parking issues, but I hope there's a plan and a timeline for addressing a complete approach to all facets of the impact that opening the Wildlands Conservancy has, both environmentally, as Tanya suggested, and to the current homeowners that are being impacted within Bodega Harbour. Supervisor Hopkins, I appreciate your response to me in a private email. I've heard you privately and publicly state this is not a county project. However, if publications are correct, the Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space donated 1.95 out of $3.8 million towards the acquisition of the Wildlands Conservancy. So unless I'm being naive, I think the county does have a hand in coordinating all of this. The Wildlands Conservancy, during their original permitting application to the Coastal Commission, actually offered up the parking lot when it was addressed that where are people going to park to access. They suggested the parking lot on Mockingbird, which is designated for Pinnacle Gulch, which has something like 12 or 14 spaces. And additionally, they put Doran Beach, which at the time was laughable because it's miles away. There's no shuttle service set up, and nobody is going to walk from Dorn Beach to the Estero. So I'm hoping that you can hear all of the concerns that are being addressed tonight, not just in terms of short-term parking solutions, but environmental protections, the need for restroom facilities, the need for trash collection. And as I said in my email to you privately, emergency access is so much more than just about being able to drive a fire engine or an ambulance through. It has to do with emergency evacuation, people trying to evacuate one direction while emergency services are trying to commit another. So, okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Patricia?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. I
Yeah.
think thanks to everybody and to all the stakeholders, and I think everybody who's spoken has made really important and valid points. One of the things I didn't hear anybody speak to is whether you're talking about the temporary red line or the ultimate permanent solution is enforcement. Because, you know, I think we know how people pay attention to parking signs. So if there's no enforcement, both for the permanent and the temporary, I think these will be solutions without teeth. And even when the permanent solution is found, people still know how to access this from Bodega Harbour. So there has to be some way of enforcing this, and I don't know whether that was considered when you put in asking for the emergency permit, or what thoughts people have about how to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Patricia. All right, now we got a couple more. So does both of you want to speak? Oh, okay. We'll do a lightning round. Can you guys keep it to a minute so we can, I've got all the.
Sure. My name is Tom Petropoulos. I'm a full-time resident over at Oyster Catcher with my wife, Ashley. If you want to raise your hand. The last caller mentioned, and I wanted to come up here and discuss stats, so thanks a lot for doing that, whoever that was. But my main thing is, and thank you for coming, Lynda, and the HOA, thanks a lot for stepping up big time. I appreciate that this is all data driven, right? But I also my concern is that some of the data might be cherry picked. At the same time, I would encourage folks to look at this logically in a way. If I were to handpick 10 people that have nothing to do with this and just laid everything out for them, I guarantee they would all come up with the same solution, which is no access, is access aside from what is, the residents' access right now, and parking as well. So I can't see how that's not just like on the forefront, the only conversation actually. But one more thing, the main question I have too is seats at the table. I know everyone here is representing each other or themselves, but someone like a John who represents pretty much everything that we, myself and Ashley, he represents our stance on everything. How is it that will he get a seat at the table to discuss some of this stuff, or is it just going to be a 3-minute, 1 minute, or 30-second thing at a podium every other month or something? That to me, that's not enough.
You are over time.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's my question.
Appreciate it. All right, last one, and then I'll go through the lightning round answers to everybody's questions.
Yeah, really quick. So my name is Jeff Burke. I live over on Surfboard Court. I've been up here for 24 years. Part-time until the COVID thing happened, and we were up here full-time. The who has a seat at the table, I basically stepped up to the table and said, what can I do to help? And because I have some of the same concerns you do, some of the same concerns other folks do, about how this has been progressing to date. What I saw in the last 2+ weeks that I've been involved in this back and forth is a bunch of people who are operating in good faith, a bunch of people who are operating in the best interest of what they can see and what they can do within their sphere of influence. What I don't know, and I think you may have alluded to this, is how does this fit together? Is there, I'm not saying a throat to choke, but is there a person with all cap, who is the lady or gentleman who is orchestrating this and maintaining that continuity of communication, that transparency, so that we can all see what's happening for us, against us, and how we can work together to make that happen. So I'll take that as my.
Great, great. All right, hopefully I can briefly summarize the feedback. Before I go into the specific questions, I do want to share, because there were some questions about, kind of long-term, short-term. I see this as we have short-term, right, which is the parking. That is not the only subject of this town hall tonight. We are also working on medium and long-term solutions, and we are trying to do all of these things at the same time, just knowing that some of those things will take longer. Off-site parking, off-street parking, that will take longer because there are a lot of complexities associated with easements, which by the way, is why Misty Arias, our general manager of the Ag and Open Space District, which did donate funding to this project and does have a conservation easement, is here. Because that easement actually has stipulations, right, about what you can and can't do on the property. Additionally, there are other levels of complications when it comes to off-site parking because there are biotic resources that must be avoided, not just based on a conservation easement, but also sometimes based on the coastal act and our local coastal plan. So those solutions are going to be more complicated, but the fact that the HOA is willing to come to the table and that we are all sitting here talking about them means that we are committed to exploring them and figuring out what the best solution for everyone is in the long term. So we have short-term parking ordinance, urgency permit through the Coastal Commission. We have long-term off-street parking. And then I would say in kind of the medium term, and we're also open, by the way, to other solutions that have not come out of the brainstorming solution set, but is the idea of a coastal shuttle. And this is something that I have worked very closely with regional parks on. We now have a very successful program operating in the lower Russian River because maybe 5-6 years ago, the Russian River town hall meetings looked a lot like this one, where everyone's like, oh my goodness, there are tourists and they're parking in my driveway and we can't get emergency vehicles in and out of these little narrow roads. And we have just been discovered in really during the pandemic, the things go viral and suddenly little places that used to be kind of the unknown local spot, the entire Bay Area wants to go there. And so the Russian River Shuttle has actually been very effective at mitigating some, not all, but it's a braided strategy, right? You keep trying different things, you bring more solution sets to the table. And so I want you to know that we are considering that very seriously for the coast. And we're working very hard to try to secure some funding for that kind of a program. And so it's been, you can try it out this summer, feel free. The Russian River, one of the great things about having a shuttle is you actually have a captive audience that you can educate. So when you've got visitors on that shuttle, you are telling them, hey, here's where the restrooms are, here's where the trash cans are, here's how you behave, right? We don't want single-use plastics left at the river, so we can also use it as an opportunity to try to make our visitors into stewards of the environment. So I wanted to share that aspect as well. So we are going to be working short-term, medium-term, and long-term with all of the partners on this. I got some feedback about crossing, traffic calming, speed humps, crosswalks. We actually have funding set aside in public infrastructure for crosswalks in West County. And so we could look at that and explore that. I can't commit to anything because it's an engineering thing and you have to have line of sight and there's all of this stuff that goes into it. But I can say that we do have funding and we've got engineers and we can take a look at it. Is that fair to say, guys, that that's something that we could consider?
It's fair to say and you can disagree with this, but I do feel like that there would be a slight efficiency if all of the comments went through a single point, that working group, and then the working group kind of fed it back to us so that you don't have splinter groups. But if you don't feel that that's, I could do it either way. We could do it either way.
No, I think that's a
But
great
it is
path.
better if all comments go to because that way the conversation is contained. People, there's a single point of contact or a group that's working on this that they might have information that is relevant to other comments that come up. So I do kind of encourage everybody to give all comments to the working group and then out of the working group, send it to SPY and the engineers, and we will work with the funding that's provided to make some of this stuff happen.
Perfect. So what I'm hearing is a yes and, which is that yes, we can look at that and let's route that through the working group. I will share all of the notes that I have taken from everyone's comments with the working group so that we have that. And then we can liaise with the members of the community. We can get out there and potentially do a site tour to look at this. I also have had a bee in my bonnet about PI's speed hump policy for a while, and that it's not actually very permissive of speed humps. And I would love to see more of those as a traffic calming strategy, not only here, but in elsewhere. And so maybe at some point that goes through the unincorporated governance ad hoc and we try to get that to the Board of Supervisors for considering revision. But I'm all about traffic calming and would love to try to address that speeding issue. I heard requests to include community members in the working group, requests about transparency about meetings with community, minutes, etc. Later, there were questions about who has a seat at the table, who's the person in the ball cap in charge. to do like the sort of signal that they have right at the baseball games. So it is Wildlands Conservancy who has been hosting and convening those meetings. So I would sort of defer to the Conservancy on, sort of the number of people and the appropriate, but I would imagine that we can, I don't know if you want to sort of be put on the spot right now, or if you want to kind of talk that over and think about, do we have a representative from the Coast Map or something like that? I don't know. Is there anything you want to say?
We're happy to facilitate. It's a lot of work. We would also be happy for somebody to either help co-lead these things or organize them. Our intent was always to continue to have them.
Great.
We weren't going to stop as we were moving through this process, but we would welcome help.
So the goal is sort of big tent, keep it moving. Also a lot of work to coordinate. Maybe we could rotate in terms of hosting or something to that effect.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
And notes are taken. We are transparent. We will share them. We've shared them with all the members in the past, and we will continue to do that as well.
Great. So for anyone who didn't hear online, there are notes being taken at these meetings and they can happily be shared. We could upload them on a website, whatever, we can make that happen. I did hear concern about loss of parking for STRs. It has been a few years since we amended our STR policy, and it took a little bit longer to get to the coast. I used to have all this stuff memorized. I would have to look up, but there is a cap on the number of cars. You cannot have unlimited cars at your STRs. And so I would posit that it's probably not impossible to park across the street and bring your luggage into the house. But we can check with Permit Sonoma in terms of what the parking limits on different STRs within the HOA area is. I heard questions about parking on Heron. I would say that again is something that should probably go through the working group for consideration as a potential solution. Concerns about evacuation, duly noted. Really appreciate Sonoma County Fire District raising those issues to the Coastal Commission. I appreciated the metaphor about elephants and a VW beetle. That was a very colorful metaphor. That also was accompanied by a request to close it back down. That is not possible per the sort of permitting process that went through the Coastal Commission. But it's not possible. I heard some feedback about making it work for the environment, carrying capacity, and then someone also did point out that I had said this is not a county project. I stand by that words and that it is not a county-owned project. We are not the landowner. We did have Ag and Open Space purchase an easement on the property and contribute to the purchase price. And so that again provides some limits on what can be done with the property. However, Ag and Open Space is specifically here. And Misty, I don't know if you want to share anything about Ag and Open Space. I put you on the hot seat. You want to just come on up. And one of the reasons that we have Ag and Open Space here, even though it's unusual, trying to make sure that they're actually engaged early to make sure that we don't go astray with one of the easements, right? It wouldn't be great if we went all the way down the path for a particular parking solution only to find out that that was a complete no-go with Ag and Open Space.
So I'll just say really quickly, so we're a sales tax funded organization, Sonoma County sales tax. So the money that went into the acquisition and to conserve the land were public sales tax dollars. So we're just trying to advocate for protecting the investment and what was the original intention, which includes protection of the resources. So we will be looking at the proposals in kind of that context, but it does also expect public access, which puts Wildlands in a rough spot. And I'm happy to answer questions if folks want to chat with me afterwards. We're really thankful that we have public dollars to do this kind of work, and we do think the Estero is an incredible place, worthy of protection from a natural resources perspective, but also for visitors. So yeah, thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you for being here, Misty. I appreciate it. And then the other thing that I wanted to, there was questions at the very end about enforcement. And Jeremy, is there anything that you want to say? You were amazing at the last meeting. And so for anyone who missed it, I was like, the sheriff's office really doesn't like to do parking enforcement because they're super busy and they don't have enough people. And Jeremy was like, actually, I will work with you guys on that. So do you want to go ahead and share a few words?
Obviously, I can't dedicate a whole shift
Jeremy,
to.
Okay. Actually, you want to come up here just so that we want the folks, and there's like 80+ people on Zoom also, so we want to make sure that they can hear.
Hi, sorry, real quick. Jeremy Juktan with the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office. I'm the resident deputy here in Bodega Bay. CHP is usually handles all of the parking issues. However, obviously, since I am part of the community and here for you guys, I can enforce and I will enforce parking. I can't dedicate a whole shift to it, obviously, but it will be a priority during my shift.
Round of applause. That is very unusual. You guys are lucky to have a resident deputy. So thank you very much, Jeremy. Those were all the questions, unless I missed anything. We also do have an FAQ. Is that FAQ up online anywhere that folks can find it? And we could probably add to that as well. Yeah.
Sorry.
The FAQ. Okay. That's online? Or not online? Okay, we could try to get that online. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all so much for being here. We still do have representatives from many of these departments and agencies, and we will stick around. That's why we tried to keep it to an hour. One thing that I do want to mention, it didn't come up tonight, but I've gotten a lot of emails suggesting Estero Lane as a possible access point. I do want to be clear that that is not a public road. There is no public access, and that has actually been litigated in court multiple times. And so that is not feasible. So, and I appreciate that the proposals from the HOA recognize that and did not involve that. But I just want to say that for the record, because even though I didn't hear it tonight, I've got a lot of emails in my inbox about that. So thank you all so much for being here. Again, we'll stick around.